So hello you guys and welcome back to my channel. Oh, today's special guest in the Halloween lineup of guests, that was a horrible arrangement of words, is the absolutely divine Roxane Duran, who of course plays Madeline in Interview with the Vampire. I don't think I need to tell you guys how much I love that show. We have a shrine to that show going on in the background. I love it. I love it so much. Interview with the Vampire, as we all know, is an absolute cult classic. The film franchise, the books, it is loved by so many people across so many generations. But the show is what made me love that universe. The show is what grabbed me by the ankles and dragged me down into the depths of Anne Rice's mind. And had it not been for the show, I don't know that I ever would have discovered that world. I don't know that I would have ever read the books or gone back and rewatched the film, because it wasn't really on my radar, to be honest with you guys. Myself and Roxane talk about this later on in the interview, but like, I had seen the film a few years back when I was a child, and it didn't really grab me, it didn't really speak to me. But when the show came out, it just captivated me. It captivated me as it did so many other people, and I fell in love with the characters. I was introduced to Lestat, Louis, Claudia, Madeline, Armand. I was introduced to all of these fantastic characters and fell in love. So today's guest, as I have said, is Roxane, who plays Madeline in the TV show Interview with the Vampire in season 2. I can't believe this even happened, and this is an intro that I'm doing right now. And as always, I'm filming this intro after I did the interview, so I know what's in store. I know the great story she told. I hope you guys enjoy it. Again, thank you so much to Roxane for sitting and talking. If you love Interview with the Vampire like I do, you're gonna love this video. So here is my interview with Roxane.
It all started because my mum wanted me to be confident speaking in front of an audience and people, which she never managed to do. So she put me into improvisation classes when I was 6. And the first, I guess, not proper theatre classes, but improv classes started when I was 3, and they put me into kindergarten, and they were very advanced. And they just shoved us into classes and told us to pretend. And I was really lucky to be part of it, because that was, I think, the only moment in my life as a child where there were no rules. You could be whoever you wanted to be. If it was a drunk or an old person or a thief or a nun or a witch, and whatever was coming up was accessible. But I never really thought that it could potentially turn into something real for me, something that I could do throughout my life, until I was 19 and I had the choice between keep going with university or actually be in theatre and have my first lead in theatre. And I chose theatre, and I was backed up by my family. But basically, just theatre and improvisation classes followed me throughout my life until my 14th year and my first project. And yeah, after that, it just became really complicated to have school and university and work, and at some point I had to choose, and I was really grateful for the fun that we had exploring. That's how it all started.
So it kind of came from originally a place of shyness, was it?
Well, I'm still very shy, but you just learn how to overcome it, and to put building blocks, and just push yourself to be more open and to not fear people as much as you originally do.
I was talking to Assad, and I think he said something similar, where he was very shy in school and he got put into like an after class or an after school kind of class thing, and it was a very similar story.
Yeah, and I think it's funny that Assad had the same thing that I do, because I think that we work in a very similar way. We both come from theatre. He's done way more theatre than I did. But when we worked together on our only scene together, it really felt like we were clicking instantly. And we had the same ways of approaching scenes and of kind of letting them digest. And so it was very, very interesting how we started every take, and I was kind of like, okay, I don't know what I'm in for, but this is a ride. And he'd always kind of tweak it, and I tweak it. And I think we have the same playfulness and the same way of approaching the work and the joy at it.
Mm. It's very funny that you bring up that scene, because I have notes on that scene that we're going to be getting into. Um,
Good.
But your family were supportive then, very supportive from the beginning.
Yeah, I was extremely fortunate that they put up with me because um, it's really not the most financial stable job that you could get. I think at the time uh it was easier, but I can't imagine like actors and actresses getting into this job today and knowing how hard it is, especially after the strikes and what we're facing economically speaking. But I was extremely fortunate that my parents were instantly like, okay, we'll back you up and how can we help and everything. But I always was extremely fortunate as well with my agents. I've got an agent in London, one in Paris and one in Berlin, and I'm very, very close to them. I've got a lot of ladies and a wonderful man taking care of me and a lot of assistants, and they're just doing an amazing job at just, keeping me in safe places and yeah, just working a lot so that I get to be in the room where things happen.
You've a team that are well looking after you then, thankfully.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
yeah,
then
very.
with interview then, how I assume it would have been one of them that went and sourced it for you, but how did that come to pass?
Gosh, I have no idea. I just remember my English agent sending me an email and being like, "Hi, would you mind auditioning for this tape?" And it was like 2 pages long. It was the one with the sad. It was the scene with the sad. And so they
Oh,
asked, I know. And so they asked us to tape one version in French and one version in English. So they sent us the English scene and we just had to translate it and send it back, the both versions. And I received it on a Thursday late during the day, and then it was due sent on a Friday, so the next day. And I was like, I'm never gonna learn all these lines, and I'm never gonna make it. But I learned them and taped it, and miraculously, the words kind of came out of my mouth, and I taped it and I sent it, and I got a call back with Roland. So I met the genius, and yeah, and then they called me back again, and it was on a Zoom once more with a lot of people in boxes and producers and the casting director, and yeah, it was a sort of ride, and I've been through these sort of processes so many times that you just kind of, I took it in a very relaxed way, and I was like, oh, I'm just meeting other people and then going through another round. And all of a sudden, my agent calls me and she was like, "You got it." And I was extremely happy and excited. And I was like, "Ooh, wow, I'm entering a second season. I've never done this before." And yeah, I'm gonna see how this unfolds. And it was really interesting to see how Jacob just embraced me so kindly and was just utterly caring and welcoming to me. And I think the thing that also relaxed me immensely was that Delaney was in it new as well in this season. And it just felt that I had a buddy that was going through the same thing as I did on a greater level and with way more responsibility. But she was a very, very cool partner to be around with. And she's just exceptional because she just sticks to who she is, and she's got that fiery personality, and it was a lot of fun getting to get to know her and play along with her.
and you were like the new kids at school together, so at least you had each other to lean on. I guess in a way that must have been relaxing.
It really was, because I think it's quite I saw it because I did a couple of shows where I was on the first and then the second season, and you see, you kind of see like the new kids coming in, and you're like, "Hey, welcome!" But you got to have someone when you come in that's willing to have the energy to be like, "Hey, welcome. That's how we function. Come on in, feel at home."
And had you done any research on the books or the films or season one before jumping
Oh
into
yeah.
filming?
Oh yeah, 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 definitely. So when I got the callback, I binged the first season, which I adored, and I was really, really surprised, and I was very excited, and I loved the dynamic between Sam and Jacob because they're fiery on screen, and I was really, really excited to get to know them. And then of course I read the book, the first book, and then I went on to the second book, and I really, to be honest with you, I really adored the first book, but I cannot wait queen of the damp to come out, because that is just, it takes another dimension. And with, you've obviously seen it, but the trailer to the third season with Sam being just epic as he always is, I'm so looking forward to it. I think it's going to be
Yeah,
brilliant.
I'm a little bit excited also.
Oh,
Just a
you did
tad.
it! Oh, God!
Swear to
Oh,
God,
how
the trailer
epic!
came out. I saw the trailer and went, I need to ring my guy. Literally booked a tattoo appointment and got it the next day. So I have faith in
Oh,
this
you're
season.
amazing.
I
Oh, that
can't
is
wait.
insane. I
So,
bet.
but that's something I found as well from watching you guys and like from interviews or watching you talk to each other is your love for the material is so intense. You know, the passion for it is there, and it's so gorgeous to see that it isn't just your job. You know what I mean? That you're like, oh yeah, I did it and it was great. You know?
I think when you get on board with Roland as a captain of this ship,
Mm.
he's so excited and he's so precise and he's so dedicated to his craft. And it just trickles down on every level, every department. Like, you know, you work on different projects and you meet different people, but I mean, it was epic. It was epic all the way through, from hair and makeup, which are just the kindest guys. Italians, very fiery, very different personalities, who take care of you every morning, and then the costumes, which were amazing, and then you get sometimes to do the gory stuff, and there was Tammy who was painting on makeup, and she's just so exceptional and so dedicated and so excited when she does the gory stuff that you just have a kid's smile put on brightly on your face, and you're just thinking, what is she going to do to me today? What is she going to make me look like? And some very funny moments when we had our feet cut with the tendons cut and the blood.
Oh yeah.
You know, we just would walk around because it felt like a second skin, because they do it so marvelously well that you don't really think what's happening. And you know, we would just walk around and sometimes squat and sometimes walk, and sometimes people were like screaming behind us, and we're like, what are you okay? And we're like, I saw your tendons, your cut tendons, and you're like, oh yeah, I forgot about them. And it just became second skin, and that was hilarious because they're so dedicated to the craft that it becomes for us this sort of joy to actually show what they've been doing and show off massively. And that was a lot of fun as well. And I think Delaney just blossomed when something was gory, and she would be up right behind Tammy, and she'd be like, and looking and watching and just being really excited. And when you've got that ambiance on set, you can't just tune down. You're kind of like getting into the zone. So it was really fascinating to see how everyone was extremely dedicated and happy. It was a very, very happy set.
That's gorgeous to hear. It comes across on screen that it's like it's the vibe of it, that it is such a passion project and it's gorgeous. But with Madeline then, you know, we got the fleshed out backstory that it was sad and tragic and lonely, and I think certain aspects of her storyline helped her and Claudia click together, like loss of childhood, having to grow up very fast. But in terms of like scripts and storylines and the direction that they were taking her character, how much of that were you aware of, or was it like a script by script or day by day basis that you'd find out things?
I think we got the first four apps and then they came trickling in. So the flashbacks only occurred in app six, so I didn't know what I was in for. And what I do when I get characters like that are in a historical period, I like to reread and really immerse myself into what it must have been day to day like to be at war. And it was really interesting the number of books that you can read on the subjects about women that had affairs with German soldiers and what it was like on a daily basis to live in Paris under the occupation. and it was full of restrictions, and you couldn't even imagine how creative the women were for not wearing stockings, but drawing a line with a pencil on the back of their legs to pretend that they were wearing stockings, just to still feel feminine, and yeah, to just pretend for a couple of hours that the war wasn't happening. And that's on a small scale, but just reading through it and feeding myself on all of these stories helped when we came up to ep 6 and all the flashbacks to be like, okay, I'm ready, and I knew what happened before. And I think Roland pretty early on just told me to read a couple of books about this period of time, and I'm very grateful for his help, and um, to have followed his advice, because you're on a show and you don't really have the time to. Um, then when comes ep 6 and you're already shooting, to kind of integrate it and know where you're heading. And yeah, so it was hinted that we were going somewhere, but I had no idea that we would go into flashbacks that deep. And to be honest with you, shooting these scenes were extremely challenging and interesting, because nothing prepped me for that. And then I had the immense help of our director, Emma Freeman, who was amazing and very, very caring, and always took care of me in any situation, in any scene. And I remember when we shot also the assault scene, she was very sweet. She would come up to me, and she'd be like, "Are you okay? Are you doing fine?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're just acting." This is
Yeah.
all just pretend, because there was a part that was a bit rapey in it, and I was like, I've done these scenes before. I'm fine, but thank you so much for checking in. So the whole, you see that we were prepped and we were as ready as we could on set on D-Day, and we also had this amazing ambiance on set, where I knew I could trust my director, and I trusted everyone around. So it makes you feel like you're somehow at home. And yeah, I think it is the kind of project that you talk about and that you're so committed to because everyone else is, and you wouldn't dare step down from this. And this is it seems kind of weird because you hear it all the time. It felt like family, but it really did, because everyone had their back on this set. And whatever happened, I can't remember how many times Jacob would go around looking at people and being like, "Are you okay? Are the lenses okay for you? Are you cold? Are you fine?" And I very rarely witnessed that, and that Jacob took the time out of all the pressure that he has as a lead to do that. It was just so endearing and so real. You knew he wasn't doing it just to get likes or whatever it is. It's who he is, and that is just really, really special and dear to me.
As if we needed another reason to love him. Oh my God.
Sorry.
But it's so good to hear though that the team were very secure and very mindful, because like you said, a lot of the scenes you were in were quite heavy scenes, or quite, traumatic scenes. And for you as an actress, I mean, I'm sure, like you said, you've handled material like that before. But how do you come away from that once it's finished? How do you decompress after scenes like that?
Well, to be honest with you, just to take it in a very technical way, rape scenes are usually physical. So you evacuate a lot of energy when you physically have to do all these moves, and they're very choreographed, so you know where you're heading. And we also had an intimacy coordinator, so nothing can go wrong. And the fact that they are so physical allows me to let go. I think everything that is more psychological and doesn't let me shake it off is way more complicated for me to wrap my head around. So the shaving scene was more tricky in a sense that you go so deep emotionally, and there's a moment where your brain just clicks and you're like, the scene can go on, and we can do a movie about that. Just that moment of her life, that scene. I'm ready for this. And I think these scenes, everything that's psychological, everything that goes skin deep, everything that happens behind closed doors is way more complicated to just scratch and erase and start afresh. And there's scenes I think that I shot when I was younger that I still can't really wrap my head around, and I don't know what happened and what um, what I was thinking at that time and how I can wash myself from those, but you kind of live with them. And I'm sometimes joking with my friends. I'm saying, you know, I feel like every project is bringing me more baggage than I already had before. Because you kind of, you know, it's not that I'm very actor studio, but you know, you kind of get into the headspace of
Yeah.
this person and how the traumas affect them and why they're that strong, why they're that weak, or what triggers them. So you kind of open up again a sort of sensibility to how another human could potentially be. And sometimes, like interview, it kind of erased me of some traumas because you just get to do it in an environment that is so safe and so caring that you just kind of drop a baggage and you're like, thank you, you've just relieved me from one of my little baggages. So that was peculiar, and that's one of the first times that it happened to me. And the fact that we started in something very dark to go into the light of love and companionship between Madeline and Claudia, that also frees you as an actress because you go from the darkness into the sun, and
Mm.
that is a real treat.
Yeah, while we're on the topic of Madeline and Claudia as well, I want to stay there for a few because, oh my God, the two of them. I mean, there's something so like beautifully complex about the two of them, but at the same time, it's not. It all just boils down to love, and it's so gorgeous. But you and Delaney were absolutely electric together, and like you touched on, maybe it's because you did kind of get to bond together when you both came in on season two. Um, but a lot of your scenes together, I wonder, how did you prep for them? Was it for like the kind of heavier scenes together? Would you have prepped together as a team? Would you prep individually, talk about scripts?
To be honest with you, Delaney came in, I think, a month before shooting, and I think she just absorbed it, and her instinct was, I go with whatever comes. And so she was very instinctive, because we didn't have the time to meet up before we shot. I think we met once, very, very swiftly, and we had a dinner together where you try not to talk about the work and you try to get to know each other.
Yeah.
So it was very, very instinctive, and I would just go with whatever she was offering, or I would offer something. But it was, there was a sort of beauty about Delaney, how she just took away any ego. And it was like, okay, right, I'm doing this now. I don't know how to do this, and I haven't prepped enough, but let's just go with it. Because you usually have like 2, 3 months time before stepping into something like that. And she just very, very bravely and very, very beautifully did it. And so I just thought, I'm not going to ask her any questions. I'm not going to weigh on her at all. I'm going to prep as much as I can, and I'm going to come in, and whatever happens, happens. And that's how we worked, and we had a lot of fun with it. And she was always very interesting because she'd change, she'd switch, she'd offer something different, and we just go with whatever it was. And we had immense, I had a lot of luck because Levin kind of clocked Madeline very, very soon, in a sense that we had a big dialogue scene where we figured out who Madeline was and what her energy was like. And when we clocked that, we could move on and create around that. And when Emma came in as a director, she was amazing because we just went into finesse and how we could make with the little scenes that we had as much as we could, as in the sense of make these two women as believable as possible, and their relationship especially. And it's so beautifully written, you don't have to do much about it. You really don't, because the first meeting is both of them. Visually, you see a grown woman with sort of an adolescent and someone still figuring themselves out. And when they speak, they're on the same level. And that's what was brilliant about how Roland wrote it. It's like they already connect, they're already here. And they're already testing, and they've got the same spark and humor. It's just they have to tickle it out of each other. And that's what was really beautiful. It's the writing, it's the language, and you don't really have to do much. And each scene felt like a sort of perfect lay on top to spice up the rest. And what I found really, really interesting is how they put together the revelation of Claudia being a vampire and how she is really bare in front of Madeline, and she's waiting for Madeline to scream and yell and kick and run, and she doesn't. She just accepts her for who she is, for what she truly is, and there are no lies. There's no pretending. There's no time for that. And they've already gained the next level of trust, and that's what I found so beautiful between the two of them. It's these two people that really see each other for who they are and truly deeply accept each other for who they are. And that's why I think we didn't need much more scenes between them. I would have loved for more scenes and more banter and whatever there was in store for them. But I find the writing so strong that it's happening. There's something sprouting, and as terrifying and as unfair as it is that these two ladies had to leave too early, well, they still have that pure love, and no one is ever going to be able to take it away from them.
Absolutely. And I think one of my favorite quotes, one of my favorite lines from the entire second season that hit me like a train to the face was, "My coven is Claudia." Oh
Yeah.
my God. I don't know if you keep up with online and like what the fans are saying and like the fans breakdowns of like each episode and each character. But like I think everybody picked up on the fact that that was probably one of the first times that Claudia had been someone's number one choice. That nobody had put her first. She was loved, yes, but she wasn't put first. Madeline was just there for her. No questions asked, no expectations, and it was so beautifully heartbreaking. Yeah, that scene, that whole to close off both ladies' storylines, this being on set that day, the two of you guys being together. What was going on there?
Oh, that was a ride. To be honest with you, it was a very peculiar ride because we went through the strikes and we were stopped in the middle of shooting the trial scenes, and we came back a couple of months later. And when we came back, it was the whole. I think it was, yeah, the whole part of Claudia is my coven and the death. So we did it in a chronological order. But yeah, that was quite disturbing. But at the same time, it felt like we'd all seen each other a couple of days earlier, and we just popped back into our biggest physical paces, and we just went on with the script. But it was very strange because I thought that it would need more prep, in a sense that I felt that I had to intellectualize it way more. And then when I came on set, I think everything that I'd prepped, I just scratched, and I was watching Delaney and I was like, okay, let's go with this. Let's go with the flow. Because the first time she really hit me, because I was supposed to be in this sort of hypnosis, was
Mm.
when I heard her scream for Jacob, and it was so visceral. And every time we shot that take, I still feel it physically. It was so heart-wrenching, and it was so visceral that you couldn't just stand next to her and watch her. You just felt everything that she felt. And then the whole coven, Claudia's my coven, turn into something very straightforward for me, where it's like there are no games. And it's not sad for me. This moment is not sad for her. It's she never would have wanted an eternal life without Claudia. It's obvious her life is with Claudia, and she had all of that. She never expected any love or joy anymore. It was all over. And then Claudia pops into her life and she's like, that's my person. That is the person that was meant for me. And I think it really resonated with me in the sense that you find that person and you're like, yeah, that's it. That's it. I don't need more. I don't need anything after that. This is it. And the choice is very serene. There's a sort of, well, if life is going to be eternal, screw that, I don't need it if it's not with that person. And that's how Roland wrote it so beautifully, and you don't really have to pretend anything anymore. And that's what's so interesting about, I think, the whole series, is that Roland is really the master of these words that Anne Rice so beautifully wrote, and you just go with the flow and you don't really have to pretend.
You broke my heart even more with the explanation of that. Oh my God.
Sorry, I
Um,
didn't mean to. I feel
no, I
like it's a
love, I just,
bomb.
huh?
I feel like it's a balm to the heart when you know that they really chose each other, and that they had all the great moments, and it's like all the tears that we shed after that is because they didn't express enough love. But it was just we had it,
But I
we
think
had
that's
it
what
all.
makes it so beautiful is the fact that it was so short, that it was explosive, it was so pure and divine. And like I like you said, I would love a whole film or a whole series about the two of them and everything that they get up to, but their story was just so compact and beautiful. But to circle back to what you mentioned earlier about the scene, one of the first scenes that you did with Armand, with Assad. That scene is probably one of my favorites of Madeline's because she she's sitting talking to this immortal entity and she is fearless. I think it's because she's so zoned in on the fact that she does want this life and she wants to be with Claudia forever. But she's laughing into his face nearly, and that scene is just comical to me. I'm like, the balls of steel this woman must possess. Oh my God. Um, and it showed that she was already displaced in human life, that it wasn't really for her. She was already out of step, you know. But I was wondering, that was my favorite scene of her because I think it just spoke volumes. What was your favorite scene?
Oh, that's definitely one of my favorite scenes. Because it was a long scene, it was spanning on 4 or 5 pages. And it was a scene that was very tricky as well because Assad and I had never worked together. We didn't know how Armand and Madeleine would kind of collide and connect.
Mm,
Um, but I had a lot of fun shooting this because we were kind of free. It was kind of a bit of a naughty scene for us. It was kind of a sort of, what do we do with this, And then
yeah.
and it was very funny because we had Hannah on set and Emma, and I remember, trying out the first few flows, the first rehearsals, and Assad was trying to find his position, and I think I just plumped onto that sofa, and I was like, "Yeah, she's sitting here, yeah." And the apple, give me the apple. And I'm just watching him. Come on, bring it on. And I was like, no, I'm reversing this. Who is auditioning who? Come on, prove me that you can turn me into a vampire. And it was very funny because it was unexpected and it was fierce and it was like, I think what I had at the back of my mind was like, come on. You think, first of all, you think that you can kind of trick me into thinking that you're auditioning me, and if you're not doing it, someone else is going to do it. So what? There was this sort of a blind belief of her staying with Claudia forever, and he's never going to be a hindrance to that. And what I found really, really strong, and Assad's choice of taking the apple and taking her humanity away as well, and sitting down next to her and radiating this brute force. And that's for the first time, I think, where Madeline's like, okay, maybe I took a bit too far, And it was also subtle and it was also brilliant because he let me kind of lead the way throughout the first few stretch of the scene, and then all of a sudden he sits down and he's at her level and he's controlling it massively, and she's
Yeah.
just like, you know. And it was a lot of fun because we always manage to variate and to have fun imagining different outlines and different energies to start the scene. And I never knew where Assad was going. That was really, really exciting. So I think that was also one of my favorite scenes because it's Madeline, um, yeah, showing how a badass she would have been as a vampire if they would have let her live a couple of centuries. How she would have maybe opened up a coven and been with with Claudia, like the queens of the world. So it's really interesting to see and to play along with the fact that she could have been bad.
Mm.
And yeah, it was a very, very fun scene to shoot. And maybe the thing that you don't know is that we shot that scene 2 days in a row because we were in the studios, and we had a sort of storm coming up, and it was too dangerous for us to stay in the studios because we were in outside studios that were built entirely for the purpose of shooting. So we had to leave the studios, go back into other studios, and wait until the storm would pass. And by the end of the day, they'd shot all my shots, and then the next morning we had to go back on Assad, and Assad the next morning just brilliantly just slipped back into the skin of Armand, into the rhythm of the scene, and I really admire him for that because he just put up a show, and he was amazing, and he did as though nothing had happened, and that's brilliant when you've got a partner like that whom you can rely on it and who just aces it the next day. That was quite something.
So that's the second time a big scene for you was interrupted by something? What the
You know,
fuck?
we had quite a few stones put onto our path. To be honest
Yeah.
with you, it wasn't the smoothest shot that I've ever been through. We had people be sick on COVID. It was just, it took a dimension, and no one was in a bad mood the next day. Everyone was going on with their own little thing, and we were all, I think it drew us closer as well, because you're thinking, okay, that went bad, and it was not in our control. And when you've got a set that is capable of putting aside frustrations and or not even experiencing them and just being there for the craft, then that's exceptional, I think. And that's where you see where people are well intentioned and sane people and kind people that are just putting aside the problems and being like, okay, let's power through this and let's do this.
Mm. With that scene as well, I have one question about that scene. What was the deal with eating the apple with the spoon?
Darling, that's Roland. It's always Roland. When you see something and you're like, what genius just invented that? It's Roland. Roland was like, how about you eat an apple with a spoon? And I was like, I don't know how to eat an apple with a spoon. He's like, figure it out. You've got 2 weeks. And I was like, okay, I'm figuring it out. So it's just kind of, I figured it out by myself. So, and that's what's brilliant about Roland as well, because he gives you keys and then he's like, well, make it happen, you know? And he wants to see how creative you're going to get or how many ideas you're going to find out. And then you just offer and he picks and he's like, but that's not bad. Let's take this one. Let's take that one.
What an odd choice, though, an apple and a spoon. At least now we know where it came from.
Exactly, exactly. And that's what's interesting. It's like, and it was brilliant because I don't know why you wanted that apple in that scene. And I don't think it was scripted that Assad would take, it wasn't scripted that Assad would take the apple. And I remember doing a rehearsal. It was one of our last rehearsals before shooting. And I was eating that apple and I was making fun of him and I insulted him in French. And he just took the apple. And I remember I was like, you fucking asshole. I'm sorry, am I even allowed to say
Oh,
that?
oh, honey, I have been restraining myself this whole interview. Every second or third word out of my mouth is fuck. You are fine. Don't be worrying about that.
But yeah, and I really said, I think, and we never shot that because it was a rehearsal, but I remember I was like, you fucking asshole. And he just took the apple and ate it. And I remember I had Hannah and Emma just laughing and crying out loud because it was just brilliant. And he did that move and then sat next to me and it was just, yeah, he ruled the scene. He was amazing.
I love little stories like that because I do wonder when I'm watching anything when small little things stick out to me. I always wonder, was it scripted? Was it improv on the day? Who did that come from? And like you said, that small little movement of taking the apple, that kind of transferal of power, is fucking brilliant.
Mm. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I have kept you long enough. I don't want to take up any more of your time. So I have one more question.
Yeah,
Since
sure.
since airing, I'm sure you've seen the outpouring of love and the fan art and everything that's been going on online. How have you found the fan reception to Madeline, to your storyline?
To be honest with you, I was so grateful for everything because I'm not a big Instagram or Twitter fan. I try to keep up with real life before going on the internet, and I was scared of Twitter, and all of a sudden I saw all these positive comments about Delaney, about the love, as you say, a real love outpour, and this sort of extremely generous and kind-hearted people. And I've never seen that before. And I was just swept away. And I was like, I love Twitter. I love these fans. I love these people because it's just so genuine and so kind and so caring. And you really see it's not just a fan base, it's people that are truly dedicated to Anne Rice's work and to the characters, and who took in Delaney with so much love and kindness and care, and took me in as well. And I was just so baffled and happy, and I couldn't be more grateful for such amazing people. And to be honest with you, it's been a joy. I'm sometimes writing back and checking in and looking at things, and I get very curious, and then I scroll and I like stuff when I've got time, and it's really it's a blessing, to be honest with you, because it never happened to me on any other show, and this is special. It's Interview with the Vampire. Everything around it is just utterly special, and I'm very, very, very endlessly grateful to have been part of it because I would have missed out on a lot of love and a lot of dear, dear, dear things happening to me. So yeah, it's been very special.
Well, I just want to thank you so much for being a part of it and to the whole cast because, and I've told the story before, I hadn't seen the film or read the books. I had, no, I had seen the film, sorry, but I was way younger. I would have been 12 or 13, and I'm like 28 now. I had no interest in the show. My mother came to me and said, "Did you see the new interview? Did you see Interview with the Vamp?" And I was like, "Mom, no, I don't want to watch it. I saw the film. I don't care." She wore me down for a week and was like, watch this fucking show or I will never leave you alone. So I was like, fine. So I watched it to shut her up, fell in love with it from episode one, became obsessed, bought the books, went back, rewatched the films, this whole universe. I'm still discovering it. I'm working my way through the books. But the show has truly, this might sound like demented, but the show has truly become my comfort show. I it means the world to me. So I want to thank you and the whole cast for opening up the story to a whole new generation that might have never, ever stumbled across the Interview with the Vampire story. So thank you, because it means a whole lot to an awful lot of people.
Oh, thank you to bits, honestly. And it's thank you to your mom, honestly.
I know. I say it to her all the time.
But it's, you know what is quite astonishing? I feel that with a couple of series, but especially movies sometimes, and you're like, please don't stop, don't stop now. Don't let it stop. And when I was talking with Mark, who's one of the producers, he was like, oh, darling, we've bought the rights to 18 books, so you're fine. You're gonna learn about the rest. And it's funny because I watched the first season and I was excited about it. I was in the second. I watched it. I was really excited about it. And now I'm kind of like, okay, three, come on already, make it, make it. And it was just, it was funny because Roland was like, what did you think of this season? I was like, have you seen the trailer? And he was like, hey, lady, just tell me about the second season that you're in. I'm like, it's great. Tell me about the rest. And it's sort of, there's this excitement about, okay, first season was really, really good. Second season, and it's a sort of progression. And I just, you usually work on projects and you're like, yeah, it was amazing.
Mm.
You don't feel it, or you do promotion for stuff and you're like, yeah, nah, nah, nah. And this, you can't really pretend because it's really good, and it gives a lot of joy, and it allows people to, I don't know, it's just freeing. I don't know how to describe it, but yeah, and we're all lucky on the other side as actors to have this amazing fan base because you're really, really special. I think you should really know that. It's not, it's genuine. It really is.
So you'll be there with us for season 3 with the
Oh
popcorn
yeah,
and the treats
damn
getting
nice
ready
if
for
I'm
premiere.
not.
Yeah.
It's 3 and 4 and 5. I mean, guys, this has to keep going.
Oh, I know. We all know. We're all screaming about it on Twitter. We will keep this train going.
I believe.
But go on, I've kept you long enough. Thank you so much, sweetheart, for sitting down and talking. I
Thank you.
truly appreciate it.
Thanks, Katie. Thank you to Bits.
It was wonderful meeting you. Have a lovely
Yeah,
day.
well, take care of yourself.
And that is it for the interview. She is such a sweetheart, such a lovely soul, so like deeply connected with the work that she has been a part of. You can see it. You can see it like pour out of her, the love and the respect that she has. It's so I love it when you love something, be it a film or a show or a musician or anything, and the person that's a part of it loves it just as much as you do. And you can see this beautiful shine, this lovely aura around them when they talk about it. That it isn't just a job, that it's not just ticking a box, and clocking out at the end of the day. It's just, it's lovely. And she was absolutely gorgeous to speak with. So again, a big thank you to her for sharing a little part of her time and her story with me and with us. I hope you guys enjoyed. There's more to come. I'm not saying anything because I, at the moment, don't know what more is coming because I'm filming these interviews all out of order. Today is the 1st of October. You guys won't be seeing it till the end of the month. I have 4 more lined up, I think. And I think I have 2 more in the works, maybe. I don't know. So I'm not saying any names because I barely even know them. But there is more in store. Thank you so much for watching and I will talk to you all soon.